All right, let's get right into it. We're always taught that being good with money is about what you know, right? It's all spreadsheets, complicated formulas, market analysis. But what if that's completely backward? What if financial success has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave? That's the huge idea we're digging into today, straight from the book, The Psychology of Money. It's a look into the surprisingly soft and honestly pretty weird science of building wealth. To really get what I mean, just look at these two stories. First, you've got Ronald Reed. He was a janitor and a gas station attendant in rural Vermont. Super humble guy. He just quietly saved the little money he earned, put it in blue chip stocks, and then he just waited for decades. When he passed away, this janitor left over $8 million to his local hospital and library. Then you have Richard Fuscone, Harvard education, MBA, a top exec at Merrill Lynch who retired in his 40s to a mansion so huge it had 2 swimming pools. I mean, he had every single advantage Ronald Reed didn't. But just a few years after the 2008 crash, that mansion was foreclosed on and he filed for bankruptcy. How on earth does the janitor end up the philanthropist while the Harvard exec goes broke? The answer has nothing to do with intelligence. It's all psychology. And that paradox, right there, it points to our first big insight. Investing is one of the only areas in life where a total amateur with zero training can just blow away someone with the best education money can buy. I mean, you'd never hear a story about a janitor performing better heart surgery than a Harvard-trained surgeon, right? But with money, it happens all the time. And that tells us that financial success isn't a hard science like physics with all these fixed laws. Nope, it's a soft skill where how you act is way more important than what you know. So what even is the psychology of money? Well, it's really the study of how our human flaws, our biases, our feelings, our totally unique ways of seeing the world are what actually drive our financial lives. It's not about the formulas. A genius who can't control their emotions can be an absolute financial disaster, but a totally ordinary person with no financial background can get wealthy just by mastering a few simple behaviors that have nothing to do with their IQ. That's the game we're all actually playing. Okay, so if our behavior is the thing that really matters, what shapes that behavior? Turns out there are these powerful kind of invisible forces working on all of us. I mean, think about this. Your personal experience with money is like a tiny microscopic sliver of everything that's ever happened in the history of finance. But that tiny sliver accounts for almost everything you believe about how the economy and the markets work. And this leads to some completely different but equally valid ways of thinking. Just look at this. Your birth year basically programs your financial reality. If you were born in 1970, the stock market went up nearly 10 times while you were in your teens and 20s. So you learned, hey, stocks are a wealth machine. But if you were born just 20 years earlier, in 1950, the market basically went nowhere for your entire youth. You learned that stocks are a great way to slowly lose money. Same market, totally different life lesson. Same thing with inflation. If you grew up in the 70s, you saw prices triple, and you learned to be terrified of it. If you grew up in the 90s, inflation is just some abstract concept. And here's the key, nobody's crazy. We're all just making financial decisions that make perfect sense to us, based on the little slice of the world we've personally seen. And beyond our personal history, you have luck and risk, which are really just two sides of the same powerful coin. Look, Bill Gates was a genius, no question. But he also had some serious one-in-a-million luck. Back in 1968, his high school in Seattle was one of the only high schools on the entire planet that had a computer. But what about his best friend, Kent Evans? Gates himself says Evans was just as smart, just as driven, but he suffered from one-in-a-million bad luck. He died in a mountaineering accident before they even graduated. For every Bill Gates, there's a Kent Evans. It's just powerful proof that the world is way too complex for 100% of your actions to determine 100% of your outcomes. So let's say you navigate all these forces, you get a little bit lucky, and you actually build some wealth. You've won, right? Well, not exactly. Because even if you succeed, you run into a new and honestly a more dangerous problem, the huge difference between getting rich and staying rich. See, getting rich takes risk and optimism. You got to put yourself out there. But staying rich, that takes the opposite, humility and a healthy dose of fear that it could all disappear tomorrow. They are two totally different skips. Just take the story of Rajat Gupta. This guy was born in the slums of Kolkata, orphaned as a teenager, and his rise was just unbelievable. By his mid-40s, he was the CEO of McKinsey, the most prestigious consulting firm in the world. He was on corporate boards, he worked with the UN, he partnered with Bill Gates. By 2008, his net worth was already around $100 million. He literally had it all: unimaginable wealth, power, prestige. So why on earth would he risk all of it for even more? That's the central question, isn't it? Because the hardest financial skill has nothing to do with making money, It's getting the goalpost to stop moving. And for Gupta, it just kept on shifting. $100 million wasn't enough. He wanted to be a billionaire, and that hunger, that insatiable desire for more, led him to leak boardroom secrets about Goldman Sachs right in the middle of the 2008 financial crisis. It was a textbook case of insider trading. He ended up going to prison. His reputation, which he had built over this incredible lifetime of achievement, was just gone, destroyed in an instant, all because he had no sense of enough. There's this great story about the author Joseph Heller. He was at a party, and Kurt Vonnegut pointed out that a hedge fund manager there had made more money in a single day than Heller had ever made from his masterpiece, Catch-22. And Heller's response was just perfect. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have, enough." Just think about that. The billionaire had more money, but the author had something way more valuable. Knowing when you've won the game is the only way to actually stay a winner. The chase for more is really just a game of social comparison, and it's a battle you can never, ever win. There will always be someone richer, someone with a bigger house or a faster car. The ceiling is just so high that nobody ever hits it. So the only way to win that game is to refuse to play. And you do that by defining your own enough, and then fiercely protecting the things that are truly invaluable. Your reputation, your freedom, your family, your happiness. Those are the things you should never, ever risk, no matter how much money is on the table. Okay, so if those are the pitfalls to avoid, what are the solutions? What are the true skills, the superpowers really, that build and, more importantly, maintain lasting wealth? Well, they're a lot simpler than you might think, but they are way more powerful than you can imagine. The first superpower is developing a real appreciation for the absolutely absurd power of compounding. Our brains just are not built to understand exponential growth. We think in straight lines, but wealth grows on a curve. And that gap, right there, in our intuition, is where most people get it wrong.
Take a look at this number, $81.5 billion. Warren Buffett's net worth today is about $84.5 billion. This number right here, this is the amount of his net worth that he earned after his 65th birthday. Just let that sink in. Almost all of Buffett's success isn't just about his skill, it's about time. He started investing when he was a kid, and he just never stopped. His real secret isn't just being a great investor, it's being a great investor for 3/4 of a century. That's how compounding works its magic.
And that leads us to a second, often overlooked superpower, your savings rate. We get obsessed with investment returns and our income, and yeah, those are important. But your savings rate, which is really just the gap between your ego and your income, is more reliable, and this is key. It's the one thing you have total control over. Building wealth has less to do with what you earn or your returns and way more to do with how much you actually keep. You can get rich without a high income, but you have zero chance of getting rich without a high savings rate. The third skill is simple: endurance. The long-term upward climb of the market is powerful, but man, it is never a smooth ride. It is constantly getting interrupted by downturns, recessions, fear, panic. You can see it all here in the gray areas. These aren't bugs in the system, they're features. This volatility isn't a surprise. It's a normal, consistent part of the journey. And this requires a fundamental shift in your mindset. We have to stop thinking of market drops as a fine, like a penalty for getting something wrong. Instead, you have to see it as a fee. It's the price of admission. You happily pay the fee to get into Disneyland because you know you're getting something amazing in return. The stock market is the exact same thing. The volatility and the uncertainty, that's the price you pay for a shot at long-term returns that will blow away anything you can get from just holding cash. Once you see it as a fee, you're much less likely to try and avoid it, and much more likely to stick around long enough to get the reward. The final skill is to build a margin of safety. Why? Because no plan ever survives its first contact with reality. So the most important part of any financial plan is to plan on it not going according to plan. This just means building in some room for error. It could be a higher savings rate, a more conservative forecast, or just having a pile of cash that gives you options. That margin of safety is what lets you survive all the crazy surprises life throws at you. It lets you endure the downturns, stay in the game, and let compounding do its thing. So, we've covered the what and the how. But for any of this to actually mean anything, we have to talk about the most important part, the why. Why bother with all this? Why save? Why put up with volatility? Why fight your own brain? The answer is not a bigger house or a faster car. The real end goal is something infinitely more valuable. So what is the ultimate goal? It's not a number in a bank account. It is the highest form of wealth that exists: freedom. The simple but profound ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. And this, right here, is the single most important takeaway from all of this. Using your money to buy bigger and better stuff, it gives you a little hit of happiness that fades really fast. But using your money to buy back your own time, to gain control and independence, that provides an enduring level of happiness that nothing you can buy in a store will ever compete with. That is the real value of wealth. It's not about being able to quit working. It's about being able to do work you love, on your own terms, with people you like, for as long as you want to do it.
So I'll just leave you with this one question. Forget the numbers and the spreadsheets for a second. Just think about this. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow morning and had complete and total control over your day? What would that perfect day look like for you? Answering that question, that's the very first step to understanding what you're really saving for, because that feeling right there, that is what money is ultimately for.